Hello and welcome to the Inquiring Cat on Saturday, the 22nd of February, 2025. This is the Saturday Rant. Well, I'm actually going to start with some very good news about the Labour Party. I know you find that hard to hear these words coming out of my mouth, but in fact, it is true. Dear Wes Streeting, the only person, as I said before, that I really have any faith in the government at the moment, has managed to get the GP appointments up to 2 million per month. This is a fantastic victory, actually, and anybody, regardless of your political persuasion, should be genuinely pleased that we are able to have this victory in our country. And he's also, of course, been talking more about the fact that we're going to use the private sector to reduce the waiting lists. The hysterical thing about that, of course, is that if a Tory said it, the whole of the unions would be up in arms. And dear Wes says it, and there isn't a peep. But it's the right thing to do, of course it is. And let's hope we get the NHS a little bit back on track. Although I do think that he's talking about fining people for not turning up to appointments, and then of course his critics are all saying, oh well, you know, the administration of doing that will cost more than the money it will raise. But I think in principle it might actually be a deterrent, and it's certainly an idea worth testing and to see what happens. But I would also go as far as the French system, which is to charge, I think it's 30 euros for a GP's appointment, and you get about 70% of that refunded immediately, and the rest shortly thereafter, and so on. So I think that's a good way to go, to charge people for appointments, and it will massively reduce the waiting lists, because the hospitals are falling apart with people coming into accident and emergency who frankly have not had an accident and don't have an emergency. And how stupid can people be? And it's not just the great unwashed doing that. It's all sorts of people who should know a darn sight better. The educated middle classes. I know, because my other half is in the A&E dealing with these idiots every day. So let's hope that something happens on that as well. Last week I had a rant at absolutely everybody, and somebody said, oh, you left out the Green Party. Well, don't be disappointed. I've got something to say about them. I was interacting with a member of the Green Party this week who was telling us that we should absolutely get rid of all the cattle in Britain and that we should be just grass-munching vegans. Well, I have nothing against vegans. I can tell you, I bought a cookery book about vegan food, and I've been cooking some of it. It's fantastic. Really, no, it really is. It's great. There's some really great vegan food. And if anybody is invited to dinner here, and we seem to have a non-stop stream of people coming through our front door to eat with us, then I don't mind now if they say, but I'm a vegan, because I can say, that's fine. I've got some great recipes for vegan cooking. But the thing is that when I tackled this individual, I did point out that this requires, and of course the Greens are really authoritarian, that's the problem. And the chap hadn't quite worked out that if we all go into being arable only in this country, then of course we will be importing mountains of beef from overseas, some of which won't have been reared to the highest standards that we have potentially. And of course, it's going to be shipped all the way from Australia. Not very green, but then you wouldn't expect these people to actually have thought that through, perhaps. The two serious stories to talk about this week, well, one, let's just follow up on a point I made last week, which is about Elon Musk and his team of juvenile delinquents interviewing and firing people who've got a lifetime of service in the government, and they're given just 15 minutes on the spot to justify as to why they should be retained. One of them is 19 years old and goes by the name of Big Balls as his handle on internet. And I think that just shows you the mindset. And, you know, he's one of these people who's responsible for firing all those people out of the nuclear deterrent department that they've been desperately trying to rehire. The reality of this is that it's redolent to me, as somebody pointed out to me this week, actually, it's not an original thought of mine. But back in the 1930s, Hitler brainwashed a whole load of youngsters. Everyone had to join the Hitler Youth, and they were all devoted to the Führer. And of course, all these little tech kids are in awe of dictator Musk. And then when you empower young men in particular, full of testosterone, and tell them that they're God's gift to humanity and far better than anybody else, what happened in Hitler's time was we ended up with Kristallnacht and the Jewish community being decimated. And it all started with the Hitler Youth rampaging through Berlin. And I think that when I draw an analogy between that and the Musk Youth rampaging through the American federal departments, just be careful where this stuff leads. I think it's very disturbing personally. We had the pleasure of Mr. Vance coming and talking at the European Security Conference this week. I thought his speech at one level was a disgrace. Please don't come to this country or to this continent and start lecturing us about restricting free speech. I think you need to take some history lessons as to why there are concerns about the far right in Europe. You don't seem to be aware of that. And also to talk to us about limiting free speech when you're merrily chopping out people left, right and centre if they prosecuted Donald Trump or if they're interested in DEI. You wouldn't know what free speech is, mate, so on your bike. On the other hand, I think that America has, in a rather brutal but necessary way, because nobody in Europe has been listening, has held us to account on our defence expenditure. It is entirely understandable that American taxpayers, now that they've woke up to the fact, thanks to Donald Trump telling them, that a poor farmer in Idaho has been paying tax to subsidise European defence ever since the Second World War, and this has been going on far too long. When Margaret Thatcher was in power, we were spending about 4.8% of GDP on defence, and today we're spending just a fraction over 2%, and that's only recently gone over the 2% level. And you'll be amazed at the amount of European countries like Germany who are still spending only just over 1%, and their armed forces, by their own public admission, are completely decimated and really unfit for purpose. We need to play catch up massively and not be pussyfooting around, and we need to be getting up towards 5% in the short term to make up for lost time, because the threats are real. And now that America has made its position clear, Europe really does have to defend its own borders. But until the recent enormous economic boom in America under Biden, although Trump won't want to hear that, the reality is that the GDP in America is virtually double that of Europe now, but it was, until quite recently, fairly level pegging. Why should they be subsidising our defence as they have done for years? I think it's appalling. And yes, I want to see more money on defence. And it's not just about boots on the ground. If you watch the broadcast coming up with Colonel James Cunliffe on the 26th of February, he talks there about the fact that it's not just about boots on the ground now. We need the money for technology, because the nature of warfare and what makes us more lethal is very much about the clever kit that we have, rather than just the number of troops that we have on the ground. When we hear that a very small number of people, I say very small, something about 40% of people under the age of 25 say that they would not pick up a rifle to defend Britain, I think that this would be different if we were actually under immediate threat. But it's not a good sign, and we need to make sure that the technology can plug the manpower gap. And so we should be grateful to America, actually, for bringing us to heel on this matter. Yes, it means that we will have to find a way of funding it. Well, you know, my solution to that would be to temporarily shove a penny on income tax. That would raise a considerable number of billions. In fact, if you did that across all the tax groups, you'd get the best part of £10 billion boost. And if you promised the public that you were doing that purely to devote it to defence, I think it would be swallowed even today with all the other tax rises that have gone on. Chop out 100,000 civil servants, that's another 4 billion. to go into the budget, and we can very quickly play catch up. Tough stuff, but we're in tough times, and it's much cheaper than going to war, which would be a tragedy. Talking about cutting back the civil service, of course, I'm a fan of what Milei has been doing in Argentina. And the tragedy is that yesterday he got caught out in some sort of cryptocurrency scam. And this is very similar to, guess what, Mr. Trump's cryptocurrency scam, where the price of the Trump crypto coin has collapsed, but not long after somebody had made over $100 million cashing them in at the peak, but nobody knows who that was. I think I might have a reasonable guess. And in Milei's case, a crypto coin was launched with the name that is his favorite phrase, something like "Long live liberty" or something. And it soared in value and then immediately collapsed, and people have lost about $2 billion. And the opposition are saying, oh, well, immediately we want to have an injunction, impeachment, because he's obviously behind this scam. I tell you, I think the opposition would be much more likely to be behind this scam. They set up a crypto coin potentially using one of his favorite phrases, knowing the whole thing would collapse very quickly because they'd take the money and run. They've become incredibly more wealthy to fuel their campaign against him. And meanwhile, he's in the crosshairs of their guns. I don't think he's so stupid as to actually be behind the whole scam. He made a mistake of endorsing it, as he endorses many things that are about boosting Argentina's economy, and he got caught out on this one. Time will tell, but hopefully the system is not so corrupt that he is being unfairly caught out. Anyway, I'm going to Argentina this week, and I'm going to find out what's going on. So here we go. This is the Saturday Rant over this week. In fact, I'm recording this before the weekend because I shall be on a flight over to South America to go and explore what is happening in the Argentinian economy. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like all this nonsense, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.